The park at Broadlands epitomises what's so often thought of as the typical, natural English landscape. And yet, of course, there's nothing natural about it at all. Every view is totally artificial, with each tree carefully planted to an exact design drawn up by Brown. His aim? To achieve an idealised, very romantic pastoral setting. Brown created a stunning lawn on Broadlands' west front, which rolls down to the banks of the River Test, one of the finest trout and salmon rivers in Europe. It runs for over 3 miles through the estate.
This is probably the most famous part of Capability Brown's design, and what you must first think about is what was here before he arrived. It was a series of terraces and fountains, all working from the river, and clipped yew, which had actually been removed before Brown came. But then he arrived, and this is where he got his name. He saw the capabilities of the site. He saw the river with the turn, and he saw the wooded ridge behind, and he used these as the main features of his design to produce the scene we see now. He was looking to create a perfect nature, I suppose. You must also remember that we're now looking at something that we've become familiar with over 200 years or more. His clients were not familiar with that. All this was new to them and was exciting. And this was the basis of his popularity and great success. He used clumps of trees to define the spaces, the wooded ridge I've talked about behind, and the gentle slope of the lawn, which a great deal of effort would have gone into to getting it looking smooth and natural. So really he was improving on nature. Let's look at this little bit of the scene in more detail. On the skyline we've got woodland, which probably was here before Brown, and in the foreground we've got the river. Everything else is part of his design. In the middle distance is a belt of trees, which is very important because it hides the arable land beyond. I think the result's magnificent.
Here, by carefully breaking the tree line in the middle distance, Brown is able to make the view to the south of the house appear to roll on forever. And if there were farm buildings or workers' cottages in the way of a view, Brown simply ordered them to be swept away. Another of Brown's tricks was to ensure that views looking back to the house never gave away a full facade. As here on what was the original approach to the house from the northwest, you were only ever offered a tantalising glimpse of what lay in store. From a distance, at no point do you ever see the whole house. Another technique to improve what was thought to be the naturalness of the scene was to use the sound as well as the sight of water. Little steps were built into streams like this to create a suitable burbling noise for the noble residents of the house to relax by. Today there's still a huge variety of trees at Broadlands. The apple blossom arch is superb. And this is the tallest swamp cypress tree in Britain. Not entirely surprising when you consider it's in the very southernmost part of the country and right beside a stream which affords it the moisture it enjoys. King James I planted a mulberry when he was a guest here. Nearly 4 centuries later, it's still bearing fruit. So did the Queen when she came here in 1957. Lord Louis Mountbatten, who lived at Broadlands for over 40 years until his death in 1979, would always invite his more famous guests to continue the tree planting tradition. Shirley MacLane's tree, a copper beech, now stands beside trees planted by Douglas Fairbanks Jr. and Charlie Chaplin. Hundreds of others were to follow. Recent storms have done great damage to much of Brown's work, although some of his original cedars have been saved. Now the present owner of Broadlands, Lord Mountbatten's grandson Lord Romsey, has started a major replanting scheme to replace those of Brown's clumps which have completely disappeared. These are ash, and these sweet chestnuts. It's also an attempt to keep the landscape vigorous and rejuvenated, just as it was in Capability Brown's day.